Hey, Beaver Readers, it's Miss Chambers. We are on our 10th First Chapter Friday. We are going to be reading Sky Full of Elephants by Sibo Campbell. They killed themselves, all of them, all at once. We unsealed the jails first. Folks showed up swinging bolt cutters to liberate their lawless relatives into a world different from the society out of which they were exiled, because no one stood guard anymore. No longer could anyone be exiled from anywhere. All banks closed down. Their silent, towering buildings became mausoleums, having been worshipped long enough. Time slowed down too. Sauntered like hours did in places like Chattanooga and Charleston, Savannah. A notoriously southern phenomenon now spread like honey over everything. Ask the time, and folks just looked up at the sky, mumbling quarter till, because gone was the appraiser of hours into wages. Gone was the gaze evaluating it for its resource every minute ticking inside a body. They killed themselves, all of them, all at once. You could feel their absence in everything, on the subway, in the streets, in all the places the wild reclaimed. Where sunflowers grew through office buildings, over golf greens plagued red with ant mounds, where the earth crawled back up the sides of monuments, where all those chihuahuas and cocker spaniels scavenged and begged in packs, their dog sweaters ragged and bedazzled collars dulled of sparkle. They killed themselves. One morning, every white person in America walked into the nearest body of water and drowned. Even now, on nearly every shore from Southern Gulf to Northern Sound crosses stand like the skeletons of those old beach crowds. Water rushed in waves, lapped and babbled, unwilling to respect in silence was otherwise a graveyard. No one expected the event. No one was prepared. Some people were angry, cursing God for doing the business of gods. Some were quietly contented, seeing the horrors as penance. Some longed for the world before, settling into movie theaters to watch Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Titanic, sharing in awe of misshapen memories. Howbeit that we remain breathing on this earth after it all, at all, after such a thing terrorized the conscience, shame, tortuously complex. Mornings came like a curse to be among those still waking up, even if rising to easy sunshine warm on the skin. Some nights were worse than others, some mornings better. A year later, Charlie couldn't say which emotion grabbed hold of him the morning he swiftly and finally pulled down all of their photos. He had found himself a nice house out in the suburbs, 2 stories tall with fat white columns and a skirt of porches. His front yard sparkled green, except under the shadow of an oak where innocently a tire swing bolted to its arm whined on every breeze. His home, of course, added to the sum of thousands taken over as we hollowed out city tenements, spilling into the outlying neighborhoods of Germantown, Rockville, and Beth- Bethesda. Sorry. To hear Al Green's voice drifting over the above ground pools out there wasn't uncommon anymore. Charlie, and he suspected many others, tried to keep the photos and memorabilia from the families who'd once owned the house. For his part, and for months stacked on months, Charlie kept the birthday cards and perfume bottles, jewelry, and golf clubs. He left portraits hung up on the walls and photo booth strips magnetized to refrigerators as a monument to their lives, hoping the solemn act might absolve him somehow. Maybe looking at all those blue and green eyes every day, those easy smiles might make him feel things he didn't. But Charlie still felt what he always felt: a husband in a suit, a blonde wife, 2 children, and a yellow dog. Charlie did not want to know their names nor what became of their dog. When he finally took their pictures down, he didn't cry. Wedged in a box, packed into the garage, Charlie put away every article in the house that made him feel as he did before all the oceans went from waving to wailing. Photos, of course, stuffed animals, and unopened mail. He unstuck the souvenir magnets on the fridge, making caricatures of Paris, London, and Rome. Even the small library of self help and sci fi books, which for him held together a watchful consciousness, he stowed deep in boxes. Anything that hovered and pulsed like a memory got set aside. And when at last the house sat empty of character, quiet but for the crickets playing symphonies in the yard, Charlie could nearly convince himself he deserved that which he could never quite bring himself to accept. Charlie had class that morning. The day would result in his third teaching lesson ever. And he wasn't awful at educating. His students eagerly arrived to his classroom and departed energized. Moreover, he did believe his lessons were deeply important offerings to this world. Problem was, a year ago, the only books he read came from the prison library. Indeed, in his mind, under his cardigan and argyle socks, down naked as a hound puppy, he still wore a prisoner's uniform. Couldn't shake it. The result, one so oddly unexpected, came when he looked around bewildered at his big house and green lawn and forward to all those students desirous to absorb what he had to teach him. Of all the good folks still living, one day he withered away in a cell, and the next, he waltzed into a world without white people, from prisoner to professor, bewildered, bewildered, and bewildered. Charlie packed the last box into the garage, bit down on his emotions, and held them under his tongue. The full commute to Howard's campus held his thoughts back then. eh, Full commute to Howard's campus held his thoughts back until he stood at the door of his classroom, where they surfaced as a sudden anxiety, afraid to go inside. Strangely, Charlie liked the fear. So often having to overcome that prick of fear, he'd learned to find nobility in enduring it. Sense of self, even. From outside the classroom, he heard his students laughing so loud they melted together in the sound of joy. He took a deep breath, fought off the shadows of the world before, and resolved to give this new world as much of himself as he could, as noble an act as he could muster. Halfway through his lecture, one of Charlie's students, Gerald, a tightly edged, stylish young man, raised a hand. Mr. Breton, Gerald asked, my question, I guess, is more of a philosophical one. Seems like the only difference between conventional electricity and solar is the source. Why can't we just put panels on every house one by one, instead of trying to rebuild the whole grid to have solar foundations? Save ourselves a lot of work. Yeah, we agree on that. You might save some man hours in the short term, Charlie answered. But if we're speaking philosophically, then you're also selling yourself short. What Charlie aimed to say next weighed his shoulders down. Right now, every city in this country is built on an electrical system created for two agendas: make natural power measurable and make money off those measurements. Priority in reverse order, of course. Yeah, sure, you can fit panels on top of every house in the city, but philosophically now you're just putting band aids on bullet wounds. Might stop the bleeding, but damn sure ain't going to do anything about why you got shot in the first place. Follow me? The class responded in that puzzled language of blinking and squinting. The class. So Charlie went on, careful not to let much of his past slip out. We have to strip out what existed before. We have to do it for the function, and I'd say the freedom of it too. It's the electrical system and its sustainability, but it's also how we think about power in general. You follow? Our new power won't come from some faraway source that feels like magic, but from a source you can see every day right above you. Same powers that powers everything. So it makes sense why it'd be free. And the sun has all kinds of energy, heat, radioactive, vibrations. One day, one of you will figure out the ways to use all of it. And not just one house here, another house there, but the foundation itself. Better understand why you do it, not just how. You make it sound righteous. You almost make it sound righteous. I suppose anything sounds righteous when you pay it enough respect.